Thanks for joining us on this special edition of Let's Talk DeKalb. I'm Diamond Lewis. Today we're talking about a subject that may make some people uncomfortable. On this episode of Let's Talk DeKalb, we're talking about children, young girls and boys that are being sold for sex. I'm talking about human trafficking. Whether you want to believe it or not, boys and girls in the United States are being exploited and sold for sex. And unfortunately, in Metro Atlanta, and yes, that includes right here in DeKalb County, these areas have become a hub for human trafficking. However, here in DeKalb County, we're fighting back, creating new laws and policies to help catch traffickers and create new initiatives and safe havens for victims. And speaking of safe havens, we're stationed today at the DeKalb County Family Protection Center, located at Police and Fire Headquarters at West Exchange Place in Tucker. This center is an incredible one-stop shop of resources for victims, and it's just one of the many ways DeKalb County is fighting human trafficking. Make sure you stick around for more details on this center later on in today's show. On this episode, we'll talk to members of the DeKalb County Police Department and the District Attorney's Office about how they are creating new initiatives to fight human trafficking right here in our county. We will also highlight organizations that provide resources to survivors and explore new laws passed right here in Georgia, designed to help human trafficking victims. Also, we have the honor of interviewing human trafficking survivor Keisha Head. She talks to us about her emotional journey of first calling herself a victim, then a survivor, and now an advocate for human trafficking cessation. Stick around later on in today's show for that incredible story. Our first story of today talks about this, House Bill 141. Now, to some people, this is just a regular bill, but to a human trafficking victim, this bill can be a lifesaver. DCTV's own Crystal Thomas has the story.
Are you excited? Yeah. Can you stay posted up, DeKalb?
Why are all of these people cheering? Well, believe it or not, it's because of a bill, House Bill 141. It's another great tool Georgia has created to use in the fight against human trafficking, and DeKalb County is making sure that everyone is equipped with it.
Georgia has passed H.R. Bill 141, which mandates that businesses should have posting of the National Trafficking Center hotline in their mandated businesses. So we're here today to go to those businesses and ask them, do they want us to post or do they have the posting done already?
This is an issue that we need to address in our community, and this is an issue that affects our children, and we just got to get our children out of this problem that's going on in our area.
Let's just take a look at this. Everybody take a chance to read it.
More than 100 volunteers were at the event, including faith leaders, law enforcement, DeKalb residents, and many other organizations, all participating for one purpose, to spread awareness about human trafficking, and in doing so, help to save lives.
We all are here for the same purpose. That is to address human trafficking, not from a law enforcement perspective alone, but from the community. The community, in concert with law enforcement, working together to attack this problem that has greatly affected our country and, very importantly, our state.
We want to make sure that our children are safe. We want to make sure that our communities are safe from human trafficking, sex trafficking, labor trafficking, all of it.
What we're doing is we're not just passing out flyers and putting them on doors of businesses. We're making a statement, a massive and major statement that our children belong to us. They don't belong to pimps. They don't belong to those who are trafficking them. They don't belong to the nightlife or the blue lights of part of our city. They belong to us. They're our kids. They're our children.
With that, the volunteers set out to their designated corridors of DeKalb County, asking businesses to post the National Human Trafficking Resource Hotline.
Just in case there's a young child or someone that's in need and they're stuck in human trafficking, they're trying to get out. Okay, awesome, thank you.
Some businesses already had the Human Trafficking Resource number posted in their business, but for the ones that did not, they were more than happy to post it up.
Awesome. We're gonna post it today.
Like the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. The same can be said for human trafficking. It takes every individual, every faith leader, every organization, every government official and law enforcement agency doing their part in this fight to end human trafficking.
It's important for me personally because the areas that are affected, I just drive by all the time. I wasn't aware of what was going on until it was brought to my attention. You know, Memorial Drive, Candler Road, Wesley Chapel, all these areas that have these issues of human trafficking, I wasn't aware of it. Now I'm aware of it, and now we're here to do something about it.
And DeKalb County will continue to have events like this, so their area is not known as a hub for human trafficking, but as a trafficking-free zone.
I see this growing as this being really the first phase of a movement, if you will, going across not only DeKalb County, but across the state of Georgia. House Bill 141 is a state law. We want to make sure that every business, not only those that are mandated by law, but those that are not, take ownership, because this is our issue. It's not segregated to one particular group of people. This is all of our issue, and we want everyone as a community to take ownership of this modern-day slave trade called human trafficking.
So remember, if you are a mandated business owner in Georgia, remember to post it up. You'll not only be helping to raise awareness, you'll also be helping to save lives. I'm Crystal Thomas. Let's talk DeKalb.
Thanks, Crystal. And even if you don't have a mandated business, it still takes the entire community working together to help end human trafficking. So we encourage all businesses and organizations to post the National Human Trafficking Resource Hotline at your location. That number again is 888-373-7888. Coming up next on Let's Talk DeKalb, we will talk to Deputy Chief Assistant District Attorney Dalia Racine on how her office is fighting back against human trafficking right here in DeKalb County. And later,
did you know DeKalb County now offers a one-stop shop to assist victims of various crimes, including domestic violence and human trafficking? Find out more about it coming up.
Stay with us. That and much more on this special edition of Let's Talk DeKalb, the fight to end human trafficking. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Let's Talk DeKalb, where in this edition, we're talking about what DeKalb County is doing to help end human trafficking. Our next guest is the Deputy Chief Assistant District Attorney over the Human Trafficking Unit in DeKalb County, Ms. Dalia Racine. Dalia has prosecuted numerous human trafficking cases. She also represents DeKalb County's District Attorney's Office in the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council statewide Human Trafficking Task Force. There is no question she has dedicated her life's mission to prosecuting traffickers and getting justice for victims. Please welcome to the show Deputy Chief Assistant DA Dalia Racine. Welcome, Dalia.
Thank you for having me.
So let's jump right into it. You are very passionate about the work that you do here in DeKalb County. Talk to us about the primary function of your role in the DA's office in DeKalb County.
Absolutely. Earlier this year, Robert James decided that human trafficking needed to become a strong focal point of this office. Since I have joined the office back in 2011, I've been handling the human trafficking cases along with crimes against children. But understanding that it's such a unique niche in dealing with human trafficking cases, he decided to dedicate a unit solely to handling these cases. And now we've grown from, when I first got here, handling 2 human trafficking cases to a caseload of over 40 cases. So it's an issue that we have taken very seriously and an issue that we are doing our best to tackle. We now have 2 ADAs handling these cases, 2 investigators, and a victim witness advocate dedicated solely to this topic.
You're a mother.
I am.
Does that make, I can only imagine some of the information that comes across your desk, does that make it that much more sobering?
Absolutely. You know, for better or for worse, unfortunately, I tend to take these matters personally, that you look into these children's eyes that have been victimized, and you can easily see this could have been my child. And I think even going back a step, just looking at the opportunities that were present growing up, that could have been me, but for one decision, but for two decisions that I made differently. And so you do take it personally. You do say you want to eliminate the threat to the future generations of children that are coming up out there.
Now, we have talked to Keisha Head, who we'll see later on in the show, and we've talked to Torrey Kennedy, who we'll also see later on in the show. And when you hear their stories, it's just, again, sobering isn't even the word for it. Tell me, what do you want people to know about human trafficking? Because, it's something that we read about and we see, and so often we tend to say, oh, that's happening, further away. It's not in my community, or it's not even in my state or in my region. So talk to us about human trafficking.
Yeah, human trafficking will infiltrate any household, whether it's in DeKalb County, the state of Georgia, or across the U.S. Often we feel like we can be aloof to the subject. It's something that happens over there, wherever over there may be. But the reality is it happens here. It happens to our children. I can't tell you how many case files we've had where the children come from South DeKalb, children come from North DeKalb, children come from all over. The studies actually show that the purchasers, more of the purchasing power is coming from north outside of the perimeter. So a lot of these communities that are more affluent and think we definitely don't have this problem, they're also the ones that are supplying the demand side of this. Wow. And so we see that, and we see the children come from all over.
Tell me, what is CSEC, which I want to make sure I say it right. It is the Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children. Explain to me exactly what that is.
Absolutely. So when you think of human trafficking as the umbrella, CSEC is one of those subsects under that umbrella of human trafficking. Like you said, it stands for Commercially Sexually Exploited Children. So it's minors here in the state of Georgia, that's anybody who's 17 or under, that are being sold in the sex trade. So that's what we categorize as CSEC. Or there's also another acronym for it, DMST, Domestic Minor Sex Trafficking is the other term for it as well.
If you would, tell me a story that really sticks out in your mind, a case that came across your desk that really just kind of puts a face on this issue and the work that you're doing here in DeKalb.
Wow, so there's so many, but I think the one that I often grasp to for the opportunity for hope, for the opportunity for redemption and rehabilitation was one of my first cases that I handled, and it was a young lady who was being exploited by her stepfather. He had molested and abused her for years prior to actually starting to market her to other men. He used the ruse of dance parties at his house while all those who would participate understood what would happen when they came to the house, and literally offered up his own stepdaughter to be purchased for sexual acts with these random men. She finally was able to disclose. Her mother was not in her life constantly. She was addicted to narcotics, in and out of jail because she supported her habit with illegal activities. And she was rescued out of that life. She was put back with her biological father and his family. And she was genius, brilliant, just an absolutely amazing mind. And the majority of these children that we deal with actually have this sense of knowledge and sense of wisdom about them. And I often will align that with their sense of survival, because you can't be stupid and make it on the street for too long. And so in seeing her being removed from that toxic environment and being put into an environment of love, an environment of enrichment and nourishment, and then she goes on to graduate from college. She's now studying overseas in biomedical research, things that I will never understand any time in my life. But she is my hero, and she is amazing to me.
That young lady really kind of sets the tone. Who are the victims of this horrific crime? Who are the exploiters of this horrific crime?
Yeah, so it's anyone's child. It's anyone's child that is vulnerable to being exploited. And I know that seems like a really wide definition, but what I mean when I say that is there a child that has a need? Is there a child that is hungry? Is there a child without a roof? Is there a child that is cold? Is there a child that's searching for love? Is there a child that's unsure of who they are? And as a teenager, that pretty much covers every child. One of our biggest indicators of propensity to be captured in what we call the life is if you're a runaway. 1 in 4 runaways will be approached within 72 hours by an exploiter. But sometimes they don't even have to leave the confines of their homes because, unfortunately, Diamond, sometimes it's their own family members that are exploiting them. A boyfriend, a mother, a father, an uncle, a cousin. And it's not exclusive to one gender. We've seen female pimps, male pimps, and we've seen both females and males being victimized.
Now, you use the word pimp, and you know, as we researched this topic, and I'm not afraid to say it because I know so many people are probably in the same boat that I am in, where I didn't realize that human trafficking is the exact same thing that we've heard the term pimp and prostitute so many years ago. So it's got this new term, but it's an age-old issue in our communities.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and so what we have to spend a lot of time doing is redefining what these terms mean. You know, because the reality is in society, being called a pimp is not offensive. You know, it's a term of endearment, it's a term of celebration, it's a term of accomplishment, you know. And when you look at the realities of the industry, you look at the realities of the life, and you understand what these individuals, these exploiters do to have these children to be complicit in these horrible, horrible acts. I mean, being raped time after time after time, night after night, and being taught to believe that somehow this is for your own benefit, when the only thing you get to do at the end of the night is hand a wad of cash over to somebody else who did nothing for it.
In Keisha Head's story, she said it was the first time somebody told her she was beautiful.
Absolutely.
And that led to so much.
Yeah. We always say that an exploiter will spend more time with your child than you ever will. They will sit down and talk to them, and they will understand what is it that you're missing, and they will fill that gap. It is the mental manipulation that occurs to these children is unbelievable.
You said mental manipulation. How are these children being recruited into this life?
Yeah, so again, like I said, the runaway scenario is a big indicator of them being recruited, but they don't have to leave home. Social media, huge. Huge. Different apps that our kids are on, you know, on their smartphones, on their tablets. It doesn't even have to be on your desktop anymore. And they have this access, all these messenger apps that are out there, all these messenger tools that are on the apps that exist. And they're recruiting them just plainly right there. They see this child post something about, oh, you know, my thighs look fat. And then he'll respond or she'll respond, no, you look absolutely gorgeous. In fact, I think you should be a model. And then there's the dialogue, and it begins. And it's a 14, 15-year-old you're talking to, not a grown-up who will, you know, brush those type of comments aside, but somebody who feels like this person actually makes me feel I'm worth something. And they are worth something to that exploiter. And that is the value that they have in between their legs, unfortunately.
It's horrible to hear, but we have to hear it because we have to know this is happening in our community. Talk to me about what laws are either being enacted now where we are impacting this whole issue of human trafficking in our community. Are there any advancements in the laws in terms of this issue?
So we are lucky in the state of Georgia that our legislature has really grasped onto this topic and understood it for what it is, and has created some laws that have given us a lot of tools and to utilize as a prosecutor. So we have a very strong human trafficking laws, which if a child is 17 or under and is being sold in the sex trade, that's all we need. It's strict liability, just like statutory rape. We also have several other crimes that go along with it. If a child's under 16, all your traditional sex crimes cases involving children, or if there's any type of offense where there's physical abuse, we will be able to charge those types of things. But again, we've been very lucky that we have very strong laws in place for us now with the human trafficking laws.
Your office is doing so much to change the landscape of human trafficking here in our community. Talk to me about your most recent development, which is called Date Watch?
Yes, absolutely. Date Watch is our new protocol that we've developed to have a collaborative response in dealing with human trafficking. We understand that operating as an island of law enforcement will not get it done. We will drive ourselves crazy trying to solve this problem just from that angle. So what we've done is we've invited law enforcement across the county to the table, school superintendents, commissioners, service providers, to have a well-rounded, well-educated, collaborative response. So when we have that question of, we found a girl at 2 a.m., what do we do next? Unfortunately, the recidivism rates, the rates that the girls and boys are continuing to re-enter the life are very high. However, we do feel that with this effective wraparound approach, that we are going to be more effective in not only understanding the problem and understanding what we need to do, but in making real world difference and changes in how we get these children and rescue them out of the life.
Now, DCTV was actually there on the scene when all these community leaders came together for this important collaborative initiative. Let's take a look now at the official launch of Date Watch.
You're sitting at home bored, you just want to do something, you get on Kicked, and the wrong person messages you. Next thing you know, you're meeting them up on the square at 4 o'clock, and here we go. We've got our trafficking case. That's how easy it is for these things to happen.
The DeKalb Anti-Trafficking and Exploitation Watch Task Force, or Date Watch, brings together a host of Georgia law enforcement agencies, including the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, DeKalb County Schools, faith-based organizations, and many others to discuss the issue of human trafficking and how to create a more proactive approach to fight back.
You know, the protection of our children and the identification of the commercially sexually exploited children is a huge priority, not only for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, but for the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office and Georgia at large. So this is certainly a multidisciplinary issue and problem. And when you get a group like this together that has the mission of combating this, not only in identifying the victims, but in identifying and prosecuting the traffickers and the Johns, it's a wonderful thing for the community and for the state.
This opportunity to sit down with different agencies and organizations, all crusading for the same cause, enables the team to utilize information across county lines and jurisdictions in order to send help and protection to victims before they suffer even more hardship from being trapped in the life of human trafficking.
Takes her right back to the hotel, at which point he has his 3 other females that are in his harem to beat her down, bottles, hands, whatever they could get their hands on. And this is what she looked like a couple hours after the beating. And you can't really tell, but she's got braids in her hair, and they yanked some of the braids on the top of her head out so hard that she was partially scalped on top of her head. And so this is the reality of what it's like to be in the life.
All these agencies and organizations have seen and know all too well the harsh realities of human trafficking. That's why Date Watch is critically important to fighting against human trafficking. Task force members are focused on being proactive, not just reactive, and part of that means spreading awareness and letting citizens know that this is not just an isolated problem, it's a Georgia problem and indeed a national problem. And what that means is it could actually be taking place right in your very own backyard.
Silence is like the antithesis to what we need to making this go away. We need everyone to be aware of it. We need everyone to be talking about it. It needs to be a topic, in families and communities, at school and faith communities, at the state level, at the community level, commissioners, the city council meeting. Everyone needs to be aware that this is an issue that our children are facing, and not only our children, our vulnerable adults as well, are facing the issue of human trafficking in Georgia.
Now, 8 years ago, I would have never thought of being in a meeting like this in DeKalb County, and here I am. So, and it has helped in helping us quickly recover young ladies. It's helped with the community calling us saying, hey, there's something going on at this house, it just doesn't look right. I've seen a number of young girls that don't live in my neighborhood hanging out there. Can you look into it? And it has helped us rescue kids that, weren't never even reported missing.
Being aware and working with law enforcement and other agencies is just one step the community can take to help aid the Date Watch Task Force as they continue to meet to discuss new ways to help protect our children, prosecute predators, and most importantly, find a way to put an end to human trafficking right here in Georgia. Wow, that was incredible work. We thank you so much for what you're doing. Now, we see the actual launch of Date Watch, but now I believe you're rolling up your sleeves and getting to work?
Absolutely. I say that the launch was the wedding, and now it's time for the marriage. So we got to now get to work and figure out what's the best way to have these real-world solutions created. And very excited about this opportunity. We definitely have a lot of work ahead of us, but we have phenomenal partners to help us get it done.
Now, just tell us, what does this problem look like here in Georgia and in DeKalb County? I hear you saying that it's in our community, whether we like it or not, so let's address the issue head on. So what does it look like here in DeKalb?
So when you talk about the numbers of what this problem looks like, the average age of entry into the life of prostitution for girls is 12 to 14 years old.
Oh my God.
For boys, 11 to 13. A lot of times what is happening is that they are running away from something. So when you think of how they get into the life, it's not that the life is necessarily alluring, it's that the life is better for them than what they think they have at home or wherever they ran from. So you see a lot of incidents, like I stated earlier, 70 to 90% have already been sexually abused. And so they've already been groomed, if you will, for the life and to do what is going to be asked of them to do, or I shouldn't say asked, told of them to do. And so that's what we generally see. And even when you see the arrest being made for prostitution, once a female, say, is of age 18, 19, 20 years old, and a lot of times when the interviews are done of those females, they say, I've been doing this for years. I've been doing this since I was 16. I've been doing this since I was 14. Currently, we have a case that involves a 12-year-old that was exploited as part of a human trafficking ring that was going on.
What is the mindset of this child? I mean, it's a child. Right. When they come to you, this is all they've known for an extended period of time. Do they even want to get out of life? Do they understand that this is not? How do you work through? Certainly there's the physical aspect of it, but there's also the psychological aspect.
Absolutely. And Diamond, I think you've hit the nail on the head. That's one of the hardest things for us to deal with is when you have to figure out how to psychologically dismantle what the exploiter has done to this child. And unfortunately, a lot of times our contact with them is brief. And we try to send them to services. We try to send them to people who are really good at what they do. But that is why we have such a big issue with recidivism with these girls after being rescued, going right back into the life. They say the average is 4 to 5 rescues before a child's ready to get out of the life. But when we compare that to other scenarios that there may be a little bit more familiarity with. So for example, we liken where we are with human trafficking now to where we were with domestic violence 20 years ago, where we didn't understand why the woman keeps going back to the offender, to the man that beats her, to the man that goes back to the abusive wife. But when you understand those complexities, where there's financial dependency, there's emotional dependency, there's fear, there's all these different dynamics, and then you add into the fact that you're a teenager and your brain is not even fully developed yet physiologically. You take all those into a very complex situation and you feel like you have no alternative, nowhere else to go. It makes it incredibly difficult for us to help to break those psychological bonds that they have.
And I have to be redundant here. This is something that goes across socioeconomic lines.
Absolutely.
All different races, all different religions.
Absolutely.
North, south, east, west. We cannot continue to apply this othering concept and say, oh, that's happening over there, so therefore I can turn a blind eye to it. This is happening to everyone in our community. We have to all get together to address this issue.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you anymore. And that's one of the biggest goals that we have is just the education piece to say, you have to get your head out of the sand. You can no longer pretend that this is somebody else's issue. It is our issue. And we have got to come together to figure out how to solve it.
And we were honored to actually broadcast live your recent human trafficking forum held over at the Maloof Auditorium. That was another way of doing just that, spreading awareness about this issue. So talk to us briefly about that, if you would.
So other than the huge moment of having the Date Watch protocol signed by all of our partners, we did start the education component, which was included having the CNN show aired, which featured Sergeant Kennedy, featured survivors, featured service providers, and also having a survivor come to speak. A child who was exploited here in the greater Atlanta area when she was a minor, and to hear the power of that. This is a real thing. This isn't just paper and ink. This is real lives. These are real people that are being impacted by this issue.
And we'll actually have that young lady's story later on in our show, and we thank your office for putting us in contact with her, because oftentimes people, again, will not realize how serious an issue is until we're able to put a face to it.
Absolutely.
And Keisha Head's being very courageous in sharing her story.
Yes, she's phenomenal.
Yep. So now, what has been DeKalb County's response to this overall issue? You've talked to us about some aspects of it, but are there other advancements that we should know about?
Yeah, so again, like I said, a big piece is the education component of.
Sure.
We do believe that awareness is one of the biggest deterrents to getting this issue resolved. So we want to figure out a way to educate our community so they know that it's there, so that they make the police aware if they think they see something. We always say, err on the side of caution and call the police. The other thing is, so once you call the police, do we have officers that are ready and available, that understand this topic, know what it involves, know that you're going to encounter children that don't want to see you.
Right.
You know, you're not going to have children that are going to run into your arms and say, thank God that you're here. That's not the reality of human trafficking. So what we have to do is make sure that our law enforcement is properly trained. We have to make sure that our judges are properly trained. When this case comes up to them, just like you said earlier, Diamond, when you first heard pimp, and kind of those connotations that came with that, is that you don't want to minimize what this is. And we have to make sure that that's not done across the board. And then making sure that all of those that are involved in this process, our medical community, our service providers, that everybody is ready on the battlefront to say, we are prepared for when that child gets rescued.
And then lastly, is there a statewide response to CSEC?
There is. So we recognize that there's plenty of us operating in pockets, and some of us
Sure.
have more experience in dealing with these types of cases than others. But what we do know is that we have resources across the state, and so the most powerful thing we can do is connect those. So the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council is now over our statewide task force on human trafficking. And so what that does is it brings partners from all over the state together, and we divide into separate groups. One group to deal with what we're going to do with the prosecution and investigation, one that's going to deal with the prevention, one that's going to deal with the service providers, and various other groups that are also included as part of that task force. And so we come up and we try to bring fresh ideas and what works and what doesn't work, and collaborate and figure out what we can do so that as a state we have a cohesive and effective response.
And thank you for your work in representing DeKalb County on that group. But I have to ask you this. You're doing your work. Your office is doing their work. We see that our community leaders, our elected officials, our superintendents, our school board members are doing their part.
Right.
What can we as individuals do? Because again, this is something that's taking place in our communities.
Absolutely. Awareness, number one. Make yourself aware. Stop denying that it's happening to our children in our neighborhoods. Also, if you think that something is happening, please say something. Please report it. And the other thing is simply talking to your children. You know, if the first time that they're being introduced to this is by a potential exploiter, that's not going to be good. We need to have our children's ears to say, this is what's happening out there in the world. And it's not a comfortable conversation, but it's one that's necessary so that we know that we've already stopped that exploiter from being able to infiltrate our children's mind into saying that this is somehow good for them.
Dalia Racine, thank you so much for the work that you're doing and continuing to do to make DeKalb County a safer place.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Diamond, so much for having me.
Now, there are many agencies and organizations throughout the state of Georgia that assist victims in human trafficking. And recently, DeKalb County opened its own center where victims can not only get care and resources, they can also speak with law enforcement, all in one place. Here's DCTV's own John Trico West with more.
For those families and individuals that find themselves at the crossroads of life and need sanctuary, finally, ladies and gentlemen, finally, there is a safe haven here in DeKalb County, and we call it the Family Protection Center.
After 8 years of hard work, dedication, and determination of DA Robert James, along with various organizations and government entities, the Family Protection Center of DeKalb County has now opened its doors at Police and Fire Rescue Headquarters in Tucker.
I think this partnership really shows, as long as it took, it shows that we as a family in DeKalb County are committed to doing the right things where our most vulnerable are concerned. And so again, I'm just thankful to be a part
of this, a part of being able to help something like this come to pass. Being the first is always good to say. In DeKalb County, we are proud to be the first to offer a family protection center of this nature in our state.
This is the first center in the state of its kind where citizens can go for all of their needs if they have become victim to a crime.
They can come here, families, they're here for you. You got advocates, you got people who's going to help you get through the tough times in life. And this is what the Family Protection Center is all about. So this is family is first, and that's what they're going to exemplify in this model.
The purpose of the DeKalb County Family Protection Center is to provide a single, safe, and secure location for victims of different crimes, including domestic violence, sexual assault, elder abuse, child abuse, and human trafficking. Here, victims can receive assistance and critical care services such as examinations and counseling services.
It's unique. This is really the first of its kind in the state, and we're excited about that we're able to protect the most vulnerable, those victims who come to the county in their time of need. Those sexually exploited, physically exploited, our seniors, our young people as well. They have kind of a one-stop shop that they can come to handle whatever the incident has been.
Having the Protection Center strategically placed at Police and Fire Rescue makes officers and investigators more readily available to help victims get through the process a lot faster, and victims do not have to go to multiple places following their traumatic encounter.
They can come here, they meet with our officers next door, usually that's how they report the crime. We'll be able to walk them right in, get started. There's counselors on site. They can do a forensic interview, get that out of the way immediately. It's a safe environment. For our detectives, they're right next door, they just walk over, and so this will be much more convenient for everybody. Very excited about it.
The first room we're going to come into is over here on the right, and this is our family advocacy room.
This one-stop shop has rooms for interviews, observations, forensics, medical, and sexual assault exams. There is also a teddy bear wall for children to have something to take with them to help them feel safe and comfortable while at the center.
The family protection is what says it all, from children through adolescence, through domestic violence, through elder abuse. We touch the whole family, and we can serve the whole family here.
This is just the beginning of what the Family Protection Center will have to offer to the community. In the future, the center is expected to grow tremendously by making the facility 24 hours and offering services to help victims with things such as resumes, money management, and GED classes. The Family Protection Center will definitely make a mark in history for DeKalb, and it will also create new beginnings for the citizens of the county.
DeKalb County is part of Metro Atlanta, which has been considered the hub of human trafficking. We want to end this as well as all other crime, so the Family Protection Center of DeKalb County has opened its doors to you and would like to say, welcome home. I'm John Tricka West. Let's talk DeKalb.
Thanks, John Tricka. If you would like to know more information about the Family Protection Center, give them a call at 770-492-5484. Coming up next on Let's Talk DeKalb, we will talk to Sergeant Torrey Kennedy of the DeKalb County Police Department on how his team is protecting our children from traffickers. And later, you won't want to miss Keisha Head's incredible story about how she survived her own human trafficking nightmare. That and much more on this edition of Let's Talk DeKalb. Stay with us. Welcome back to this special edition of Let's Talk DeKalb, the fight to end human trafficking. I'm Diamond Lewis. Joining us now is Sergeant Torrey Kennedy Assistant Unit Commander of the DeKalb Special Victims Unit. He has served with DeKalb County Police Department for 14 years. Since 2011, he has helped to pioneer the Internet Crimes Against Children Unit, or ICAC, finding new ways to protect our children from predators. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sergeant Kennedy.
Thank you for having me.
So first, talk to us about what exactly is the ICAC unit? What does it exist to do?
First of all, ICAC is an acronym for Internet Crimes Against Children. We were put in place many moons ago to combat predators online, basically individuals seeking children for prey. So it's actually a national task force, and we're part of the localized task force, which is headed by Georgia Bureau of Investigations. We're one of the primary units or department that handles internet crimes against children here at DeKalb.
And with the increase of the popularity of social media, I can imagine that is your job that much harder? Do you see even more cases coming in? I have a 3-year-old nephew, and I know he's constantly on the iPad, so kids are that much more exposed?
Absolutely. It's just the advancement of technology, period. It's not necessarily just social media. It's a lot of other things, a lot of avenues. The internet is definitely the #1 factor in this. We got a lot of kids that are on the internet, even adults that, they're using that as a way of communicating back and forth every day. Mobile communication devices like cell phones, iPads, Android tablets, and things of that nature are a key factor in a lot of the cases we make. But a lot of these, the individual photos or images of kids being exploited come back from VHS, even beta, that have been transferred from these devices to digital format to be shared on the internet. It goes far back as peer-to-peer network or file sharing, like when Napster came about and Bear Share. I could think of a lot of older peer-to-peer networks. A lot of people are familiar with LimeWire and things of that nature. But that's when this became widespread. That's what started Internet Crimes Against Children, the sharing of these images of exploited children. We're talking about anywhere from infants to late teens are being exploited and their images are being shared up on the internet.
Now, since we began producing this show and started researching human trafficking, I've noticed that there have been quite a few instances as of late where a young lady goes missing and, they're looking for her and they're trying to find out what happened. Did she run away from home? And it tends to be that she went to go meet somebody who she met on the internet. Right. So that's happening quite a bit as well. These predators are now reaching out to the kids online.
Right. We used to fear the child on the playground or the child walking to the school bus. Well, now predators come through your home, through the internet, or through a phone call, social media, things of that nature. We got involved in the human trafficking aspect because of the nexus to the internet, where kids are being sold online for sexual favors. We found with our history or our ability to communicate with kids that it was just easier for us to handle cases involving child sex trafficking.
So walk me through how you go about solving a case that comes into your office. So let's say, just the example we were talking about, a young lady is missing and we find out that it's because she met someone online. How do you go about solving the case, finding the person, bringing the child back home, closing out the case?
It's kind of difficult because we try to keep some of the stuff that we do quiet. Because if we put it out in public, then the predators know how we're tracking them. So I'll just say this, we actually proactively seek out individuals who prey on kids. So in that particular case, of course, we'll go out to the family home or the residence in which they were living or wherever they left from. It could be a group home. It's been a number of different places where kids leave from, and the investigation starts there. What did they communicate on? How did they communicate? You try to trace who do they communicate with, and then you go from there. I mean, you can pretty much use your imagination on what we would do, to find these people. I won't get into the specific devices in which we use, but technology is great. I'll just say that. And it helps us out. A number of us are trained in special areas of advanced technology, and we have the ability to track and trace people within feet.
Explain to me, how have you helped to pioneer some of the tactics and methodologies that are used here to help solve some of these crimes in our community?
When you use the term pioneer, the pioneer part comes in for me as help to start this unit. Now, I didn't create the methodology behind investigating these cases. It's just like any investigation, you follow where the evidence leads you. So there are some specific tools. Of course, I didn't invent them. You know, I've been trained to use them and to track predators or to find predators. But as far as the investigative side, I mean, it's really all about how much effort you want to put in to find or to work on the case. It's really about that.
So let me ask you this. Why did you feel that at that time there was a need for this type of division? You were the pioneer in bringing this division about. So why did this community need this kind of unit?
I was working in special victims and saw a need. Just like the command staff who was over me at the time, they saw the need. I was actually brought to special victims to specifically work the cases because of my, I guess, technical background. So it was kind of floated over my head, hey, you want to use some of those computer skills that you have? And I jumped on the opportunity to come. Little did I know I worked special victim for 4 years before this even existed. So the fight was just showing the need. I joined the statewide task force, or GBI. Started working cases for them. They were providing tips and leads. And I would work those cases and show the need that, hey, there are a lot of predators in DeKalb. We have a pretty decent size or number of sex offenders registered and living right here amongst us in almost every neighborhood. Not saying that all our cases come from sex offender, because the vast majority of those guys on the wall, we put them on the registry. So a lot of these predators live amongst us as regular, day-to-day citizens. Appear to be law-abiding, children lover. They place themselves in those, I guess, situations to be close to children. So being in special victims, seeing the different crime, seeing the different crime trends, which would be the technology side, and we just had a need to go after it day to day. We didn't have a proactive side. We had a reactive side. And if you know anything, being reactive to something, it's a little too late. Sure. So we want to save kids before they actually get involved or become victims. So we showed the need to do the proactive side, and the unit was born from that.
If you would, I want to make sure that our viewers truly grasp the severity of this and the magnitude of this issue. So if you would share with us a case that really stands out in your mind, that kind of serves as a face of what's taking place in our community and how impactful the work that you're doing truly is.
The one particular case, I always talk about it because it's the one case that drew me or really reeled me into working these cases. Early on in my career, I always thought that the juvenile played a part in it. But I was working a particular case, and it was involving an underage girl, of course. I think she was 13 years of age. We're going to call her Kay. Okay. Kay's case came to me from a uniform report involving an officer stopping a young lady walking up and down Candler Road near South DeKalb Mall in the company of an older gentleman. The officer made contact with both. They give two separate stories. The investigation lead to the officers at the hotel room which they were in. The little girl explained that she had been involved in prostitution. Well, the officers involved in the investigation or the stop knew that because they saw her pacing and making contact with cars and things of that nature. She was arrested. And the suspect was arrested. She was arrested for the prostitution portion of it, and the suspect was arrested for something else, charged as an adult. Turned out she was actually a juvenile. I went to interview her. I couldn't get 2 words out of her. And I've been known to be a decent interviewer. And I didn't understand it. I interviewed her suspect. He immediately lawyered up and requested an attorney. So I took it to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta for a forensic interview. At the forensic interview, she didn't talk. I couldn't grasp what was going on, so I contacted her mother. Spoke with the mother briefly. She told me that her daughter was mentally delayed and that she had the mind of probably a 5-year-old, and if I talked to her that way, she would respond. So I changed my level of speech to that of a toddler. We had a great conversation. In the car, she disclosed everything I needed to make a case against this guy. So I then took her back to a forensic interview and explained to them exactly what was going on. We were able to make a case out of it. And since then, Kay has been pretty much a part of my life. I run into her quite often, even though that one incident didn't get her out the life like we explain a lot. But she's come into contact with police multiple times, and the officers and investigators in Metro Atlanta know her to be sort of my child. So when they make contact with her, I have a rapport with her, and she'll disclose what needs to be disclosed. Last I heard, she was in South Georgia, and she's doing really well at I guess, I won't say an assisted living, but at a group home type environment. That's a little better than what she was dealing with here. But there was even more to that case. It encompassed everything that I had been trained on. The socioeconomic status of our household, the single parent household, the cleanliness, the multiple kids, the lack of nutrition. So when I talked to the girl, she said in her own words that she didn't want to go home because it was loud. I didn't get that. I didn't grasp that until I visited the home. It was loud, you know. There were crying babies. There was noise in the background. You know, she was sleeping on mattress on the floor. If she slept, Roman noodle was the choice of foods. You know, so it was a lot of the stuff that had been trained. A lot of the girls escaped to go into the life because of the lack of life they had at home, if that makes sense. So that one particular case drew me in, and I've been stuck there, you know, fighting these cases for years now.
You are clearly very passionate about what you do, and I have to ask you personally, you're a father.
Yes.
When you're working these cases, what kind of emotional and personal toll does it take on you? Are you able to leave the job at the office?
Oh, that's a good question. No.
Thank you.
Absolutely not. And I must say, I have a daughter. She's my youngest, and it's tough for her. And I say it's tough because I don't trust anybody. I don't trust the soccer coach, the basketball coach. I don't trust the pastors, the preachers. That's what's killed it. You know, because I've dealt with every level of cops. In every profession, I've come in contact with someone who's been willing to abuse a child. So it's difficult. It's sort of like a thorough interview before the sleepover, both ways. If her friends come to our house, where's your parents? Can I talk to your mom? Can I talk to your dad? What are they like? You know, if she's going to sleep over at another friend's house, the chances are slim, very slim. And if I don't know the parents, it's almost a no. So yeah, it's difficult for my daughter. And my boys, on the other hand, they're some big boys. So, and of course, my daughter is next to my heart. So it's a difficult thing for her. I can tell you that now. I try not to shelter her completely, but it happens. It really does.
Again, I hear your passion, and we've spent a few moments talking with some of your team members here, and you can see that this isn't an easy job, but I imagine it's a rewarding job.
Rewarding in saving a child, yes. But there is no reward to what we do.
When you close a case and you know that you're able to return a child to their home, to their rightful place, how does that feel?
It feels great. You get that first moment of Gratitude from the family. Thank you. We really appreciate your help. But truth be told, this cycle is ridiculous. Most of the girls we say go right back. So you get your moment of pleasure and you move on. We're not cold or callous, but we have to be reserved to an extent. I made that mistake before, becoming too attached with Kay's case. And there's some heartbreaking moments in that, you know, fighting with governing entities about where she's going to be placed and who's going to care for her. It makes the job difficult because we're investigators, we're not counselors. You know, we're not therapists, we're not friends or family. So we have to work that case until it can't, or till it has some form of resolution, present it for prosecution, and move on to the next case. So to say that there's some form of joy out of it, it's not. But what I do like is that everybody agrees with us. You know, there are some cases in property crimes where, you know, you get your car broken into, ooh, boo-hoo. You know, you get that moment of, okay, great, your car is broken into. But when you save a child and you put that predator before the courts, everybody's on your side. That's the difference. So, yeah, in that aspect, I enjoy working these cases. But I don't enjoy seeing kids being abused. That's for sure.
Sure, of course. Now, I know that I can't quite ask you to quantify the success here in your department because of the repeat offenders, the fact that you partner with other divisions. So if you would just explain to us the wall behind us.
That is, I guess that's probably representation of about 80% of the arrests we made, have made. 95% of the people on the wall involved in some form of exploitation of a child, whether it's involved in the exchange of images of children being exploited sexually, or the for sale or trade of children for sexual servitude. Most of them. And then there are some that are up there for like sextortion, preying on children, forcing them to send images of themselves and things of that nature. So,
and I mean, they're all ages,
right,
all races.
Right.
Are there even women up there?
Yes.
So is that widespread?
Yes. And it's, when you talk about race or nationality, it's, there's no socioeconomic boundary here. You know, there's nothing that separates the two, white, black, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, Asian. We've encompassed all, Middle Eastern. So no one escapes. And child sex trafficking is not just a national problem, it is a world problem. It's not something we're just dealing with here in the United States. We're just breaking grounds on it. It's just become a buzz term here. But this stuff has been going on for ages around the globe. We mask it with a beautiful term called pimping or prostitution, when actually it's just exploitation. When we talk to a number of the older women of life, they'll tell you they've been in their life since they were a child, most of them. You know, they were exploited at some point, whether it was by a family member or a friend of the family. So it starts at a young age, and that's our unit mission, is to help fight and end the early exploitation of children.
For parents watching this, again, all kids are on the internet at this point.
Of course.
So what can we as parents or guardians, what can we do to make sure that we protect our children from, you said we no longer have to worry about them getting kidnapped on the playground, now it's the internet. So what can we do?
That's a big question. The reason why I say that is because you don't want to take the devices from your children. You don't want to create a digital divide. You don't want to put them behind in time.
Sure.
You want them to experience social media. You want them to experience the internet and know how to use these things, because workplace is becoming a part of that. almost every industry or employer has some form of social media account, or the use of computers or electronic devices are important. So you want to keep your kids up on the time, but it's important for you to know what that device does and how to exploit it, how to go on and be that nosy parents, you know, when you used to bust in the door and see what they're doing in their room in the middle of the night or who was in your home. You want to do the same thing to their phone. I'm not saying it violate their privacy, but what child has privacy? What is that? You know, there's nothing I wouldn't do to save my child. So why wouldn't I be proactive in that approach to make sure it didn't happen to my child? So I'm saying, if you're going to give your child a loaded device, unload it, or know how to unload it, know how to exploit it, know how to use it. So one of the things that I've taken in my own household is the hand-me-down approach. So they get my old device because I know how to use that device. Now they may be mad or salty about it, but they'll get over it. You know, it's not that I can't provide them with a new device. I just want to be able to pick it up and go through it real fast and, you know, figure out what they're doing. I'm not saying become your child's friend or anything of that nature. You're a parent first, so be just that. And be upfront about it. Let them know why you're checking their devices. And shows like this, introduce them to that. Like we did I filmed the documentary with CNN. All of my kids have seen it. So just be vigilant. You know?
My last question for you is the cases that come in to your office here, some of them your team has researched and found themselves, correct? And then you have some who are turned over by other uniformed police officers.
That's correct.
And then you also get tips. So for our viewers, how can they call in if they think they know something? You know, because typically if you question something, call it in. If you think something's wrong, there's probably something wrong.
Right. It's the squeaky wheel theory. We don't know if anything is going on if you don't report it.
Right.
And you will report it under normal circumstances. If it's a hot situation, call 911, or you can go to the non-emergency number. I don't want to give out the phone number here because we don't want to create just an avenue of a bunch of phone calls. But if you think it's something going on, just report it to local police, a local police department, be it phone or in person. But to recall the list and the number of people involved, I'd be hard pressed to do it.
We won't ask you to do that. We'll actually provide that information at the end of the show.
Right.
So, Sergeant Torrey Kennedy, thank you so much for all that you're doing to help keep our children safe here in DeKalb County. We certainly appreciate your work.
Thank you.
And your dedication for sure.
I appreciate it.
Human sex trafficking is an all too real and very serious issue in our country and even here in DeKalb County. But it doesn't have to remain that way. DCTV's Shara Campbell has more on a special day where hundreds of ordinary citizens came to the state capitol to put this issue before our legislators. Shara?
Hundreds band together in an effort to stop child sex trafficking in our state. They recently attended the Domestic Minor Sex Trafficking Lobby Day at the Georgia State Capitol.
What a lot of folks may not be aware of is that the state of Georgia, and especially Metro Atlanta, consistently ranks very high nationwide in the top 3 in child sex trafficking. And that is something that this lobby day here today seeks to address. This is an annual event that brings together a number of very effective nonprofit organizations.
DeKalb County government is making sure it's a leader in dealing with this issue as well. Interim CEO Lee May and other DeKalb officials held an open forum to educate the community about human trafficking.
Well, it's a growing issue here in DeKalb County and in our region as well. We are an international community and human trafficking is growing by leaps and bounds, and it's something that is hidden from the general public, and we want to address that head on.
DeKalb is spreading the word about this criminal trend, its visible signs, and how the public can help authorities contain and prevent its growth. The annual Lobby Day also helps highlight the issue. More than 500 people came out to the DMST Lobby Day to help victims. Quite a contrast to the first Lobby Day more than 7 years ago, where only 50 people attended.
It is our job as citizens to let the legislators know that this matters, and this group will definitely give that message. The purpose of the Lobby Day is to connect citizens with their legislators to bring awareness, education, and advocate for legislation that protects our children. It empowers citizens to be the voice for the voiceless.
The Georgia Senate passed legislation directed at stopping sex trafficking with bipartisan support in February. Senate Bill 8 creates the Safe Harbor for Sexually Exploited Children Fund and Commission. It increases punishments for perpetrators and adds more protection for victims. The bill also requires convicted sex traffickers to be listed on the Sexual Offender Registry and establishes fines to help fund treatment and rehabilitation for victims. Senate Resolution 7 sends this new penalty fee to the voters.
Often a runaway is taken in by someone who will be the girl's boyfriend. She will call him her boyfriend, but over time, he will gradually make sure that she is more and more dependent upon him for her day-to-day needs, but then ask her to do just gradually, step-by-step, things that she doesn't want to do. And before she knows it, ends up having to perform sex acts through coercion, force. Often what these pimps, is what they are really, will do is help ensure that drugs are a part of the equation, and really just over time, sort of like, you know, the saying about boiling a frog in hot water. They don't notice it as the water is heating up until it's too late. And that is often the case with trafficking here in Atlanta.
The director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation is among those focusing on stopping human trafficking. Vernon Keenan believes we need to change our laws as well as our attitudes.
If you notice, I don't call them pimps, we call them child sex traffickers. That's what they are. And victims are victims. They're children. They're not prostitutes. They're not child prostitutes. They are victims.
And many of those victims believe no one cares or wants to help. It's a belief reinforced by traffickers' lies, and also when community members don't take a strong stance against the crime.
We see cases every week in our state, throughout our state. So we need your help. We need you back here next year. We'll need you back here the year after. This problem's not going away in 2 or 3 years. So we need your continued help. We need you to keep educating, because we still have too many folks that are in denial, that don't believe the problem exists. One child saved is a great success, and we need to keep working on it every single day.
The DMST Lobby Day has grown significantly since it started. There are more laws on the books today because of participants' efforts, and more laws are on the way. Shara Campbell, Let's Talk DeKalb.
Thanks, Shara. Here's an interesting fact. Georgia's Safe Harbor Act is also nicknamed Rachel's Act in honor of a young woman who testified in early 2015 during a committee hearing on sex trafficking. Stay tuned. We'll have much more of this special edition of Let's Talk DeKalb right after this. Welcome back to this special edition of Let's Talk DeKalb, where we're raising awareness about human trafficking and countywide efforts to stop this horrific crime mostly committed against children and young women. I'm Diamond Lewis. Our next story is about an incredible woman named Keisha Head. At the young age of just 16, Keisha's life changed when she was brought into the life of human trafficking. Now she is changing lives as a survivor. Here's DCTV's Elena Daniel with more.
Keisha Head is quickly becoming a national public figure, turning a tragic time in her life into a powerful platform to help others who are kept silent and trapped in a lifestyle of life and death.
When I tell my story, which I don't like to tell my story, I wish it wasn't my story, which I would read it and it's someone else's story, but I do have a goal when telling my story, and that is to reach a young girl in a hotel room or in a strip club that is going through the very exact same thing that I went through. And I want her to have some type of hope in knowing that she will get through it and she will overcome it. And that is the only reason I am here today, because I never forget the faces of young girls who got in cars and I never saw again. I had a very bad childhood, I would say. It was good, and on the outside looking in, it might have looked good, but on the inside it was bad.
After running away from several foster homes, soon Keisha barely had enough resources to take care of herself, and she began living on the streets until she met a man that said he could help her.
I spent a lot of time on the streets and in abandoned apartments and over friends' houses, and after a minute my resources were depleted. And I reached out to my godmother, who I asked for help, and she was just tired of my behavior, so she really was like, I can't help you this time, but a friend of yours from church called. And so I called my friend and I was telling her about my situation, and she said that she knew a guy who could help me. And I went to see her and she introduced me to this guy named Sir Charles.
Charles Pipkins, also known as Sir Charles, was a notoriously known Atlanta pimp. However, at the time, Keisha saw him as an ally, even a best friend. But soon, Keisha realized that Sir Charles was not what he seemed to be.
He took me to an area in Atlanta where girls are trafficked, known as the Track Metropolitan. It was called Stewart Avenue at the time. And he began to tell me all these rules and things that I would do and things that I couldn't do, things that I better not do. And I began to question, and I was like, I can't do that. Or he would tell me how much to charge for sex acts, and I would tell him, no, I'm not doing that. And he looked me in my eye and he said, oh, you're gonna do it. You know that little girl you showed me or introduced me to, I'll make sure something happened to her. You better do everything I tell you to do.
During the first few days she was being trafficked, she had a chance encounter with a police officer. But unfortunately, this encounter shattered any hope that she ever had of being rescued.
A law enforcement officer pulled me over and he shined a light on me. He said, hey, you, what are you doing out here? And I told him what the trafficker told me to say, which was I was waiting on someone. And he said, you don't belong out here. And I was thinking, wow, I'm about to be rescued. And he said, you belong on Peachtree Street where the pretty girls are. And so he told me that, and he's like, you better get off my corner or whatever. And I went and told the trafficker what he had said, and the trafficker took me to Peachtree Street. And that's where I was trafficked for the next year and a half. When you're being trafficked, you work 7 days a week. There's no holidays or no off days or no time to rest. Your hours are from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. So it's no time to sit back and think about your situation. You're just up and sleeping, up and sleeping, up and sleep. And that's just your routine. He knew how to draw you in and make you feel special. And as a child, you're not understanding that there's a price to pay for all of these material things. And even though you know there's a price to pay, it is better than what you come from. It's the lesser of many evils in the life of many children. They feel that the trafficker is the best thing that has ever happened to them, coming from their fathers sleeping with them, or coming from other situations that are far worse to them. So it's a very glamorous lifestyle until you realize that it's a life and death lifestyle.
But instead of letting this life consume her and kill her, she chose to live, and now she works to save more lives.
I became an advocate in 2010, and I speak on a national level and help promote legislation that really helps law enforcement prosecute traffickers.
Keisha has been a keynote speaker at a variety of forums and events, and has even been featured in an array of news segments and articles, speaking for young girls and boys who stand on the corners in plain sight that no one seems to see.
We're girls that no one looks for. People write us off easily. Oh, she's a runaway, or she's just fast, or she's just grown. Not really understanding the situation that once you're in that trap of a trafficker, once you're in their trap, you can't get out, and it's not that easy. If I can sit here and share a story about a trafficker who I know is notorious and can come after me or retaliate and not have fear, because I understand that that is just mind control. It's just a brainwashing. Then it gives her hope that she can escape her trafficker.
Keisha hopes that her story will continue to give not only hope, but courage to those trapped by human sex trafficking, and bring awareness to a world that no one ever asked to be a part of.
I don't want to see any young girl or boy go through what I have experienced.
And every time she steps in front of a microphone or a camera and tells her story without fear, she will be helping to do just that. I'm Elena Daniel. Let's talk DeKalb.
Thanks, Elena. We certainly hope that Keisha's story has inspired those in trouble to reach out for help, or if you know someone that may be in this type of situation, we hope you encourage them to call the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline. Again, that number is 888-373-7888. Stay tuned, we'll have much more Let's Talk DeKalb right after this. We hope you've enjoyed this special edition of Let's Talk DeKalb, the fight to end human trafficking. If you want to find out more information on any of the services, programs, or initiatives we've talked about on today's show, grab a pen and paper, because here is all the information you'll need to do just that. DeKalb County's Family Protection Center is located at 1950 West Exchange Place in Tucker. You can contact them at 770-492-5484. To contact the Human Trafficking Unit at DeKalb's District Attorney's Office, call 404-371-2561. You can also visit their website at www.DeKalbDA.gov for more information about their services. You can contact the DeKalb County Internet Crimes Against Children's Unit at 770-724-7475. You can also visit the county website at www.DeKalbCountyGA.gov and click on Police Department, located just under the Quick Links section for more information about police services. And again, the number for the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline is 888-373-7888. Also here at DCTV, Channel 23, we welcome your thoughts on this show and all of our other programming. Send us your thoughts by emailing us at DCTV@DeKalbCountyGA.gov. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube. Simply go to YouTube and search our channel at DeKalbCountyGov. That's DeKalbCountyGov. You'll also check us out on our website at DCTVChannel23.tv. Or you can give us a call at 404-371-2989. Well, that wraps up another great edition of Let's Talk DeKalb. From all of us here at DCTV, thank you for watching. And remember, it takes all of us to do our part to end human trafficking. We'll see you next time on Let's Talk DeKalb.